What's going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and today I'm going to be giving you a budget breakdown of the entire office loft renovation makeover series. So for those who have been following the channel, I'm sure you've seen a ton of episodes now of when I purchased a space back at the midway point of 2020 and pretty much gutted like 95% of it to turn it into like a modern industrial loft where we produce YouTube videos and also edit, and essentially where the entire media company and YouTube channel operates. Over this last year, there's been a lot of different steps in the process and things that I've learned, and ones that we've carried over into the next renovation project that is happening right now, if you guys saw the first episode of that. But I've got to say, the overall turnout was really good, but in this video, I'm gonna be completely transparent on the entire budget, the different details, areas where I feel like I could have maybe saved a little bit of money or done a little bit differently, and whether or not I felt like it was worth it overall. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you drop them in the comment section below. And I know there's gonna be a lot of opinions with any like makeover of where you might feel like I spent like too much money, but as I said, it's all learning experience. And because it is a YouTube series for the company as well, there were a lot of different brand partners that came together that helped me justify the cost of the overall renovation. One thing to note though is that all the prices are in Canadian dollars. So if you live in the US, you subtract about 20%, and this was done in Vancouver Island, Canada. So I do feel like it is a little bit more expensive because I live on an island and there aren't as many choices. So beginning with like the different general steps of this entire renovation, the first step with this whole thing was to hire a design firm to take a look at some of the things that I would have liked and also get a bit of guidance as well. That usually costs between a couple $1,000s, but can often cost a lot more as well. It just depends on the scope of what you need. But in my case, I already kind of had a sense of a lot of the things that I wanted. I just kind of needed some like professional advice on how I could do things a little bit differently. So after that, the whole demolition process like took place, and there was definitely a lot to do. There was the flooring, and with that, you don't know what's underneath, so there was subfloor as well. There's also like the whole process of getting rid of the fireplace, which I thought would be very expensive, but there's also the shower to move upstairs because that was in the middle of the bedroom. Kitchen, there were just so many things to overall take apart. In that process alone, it came out to like a much higher price than I expected. After that though, the next step was to prep the walls, do all the electric work, and because there was a lot of drywall work needed anyways, I figured it made sense just to like cut open all the walls and do the electric stuff exactly the way that I wanted. And with that, all the walls were repainted, the concrete floors were redone and all smoothed out and patched in, and the kitchen was the next thing to arrive, along with the countertops, the furniture. The railings were a pretty late step in the process. The bathroom is being tiled, so that was like kind of the general like order of operations. But with that, there's also the slat wall right here, which was actually done pretty quickly, but things like the doors and like the den were done a little bit later due to like delays and changes in ideas. Before I jump in, I want to give huge thanks to the sponsor of this video, 360 Smart Life, and their 360 video doorbell, because it is an essential piece for like the security and also access for like mail deliveries and everything, to allow people to easily ring the doorbell of the space and allow me to talk and also see who is at the door at any time. Being a space that we focus a lot on like the smart home aspect and also security, this is like a great all-in-one system that has made my life a lot easier. So I'm gonna show you like what's included in the box, as well as the overall setup process, functionality, and features of the 360 video doorbell. So this model in particular is a 360 Video Doorbell X3 model, which is like the flagship in the 360 Smart Life lineup. It overall looks very sleek in terms of its design. I think it goes with like the overall theme of like the hardware that I've done in this place very nicely. And if you look at it on the front, it has a radar sensor. It is also very easy to install and also allows you to have the option to hardwire, but they do also have an expansion of 10,000 milliamp hours, which gives you a really nice battery life as well. So you just don't have to worry about it, and it will stay active at all times. I also like the fact that the doorbell button is like very large and prominent in this case, and it is overall just very well put together while staying relatively slim and minimal in the front of your home or condo. The radar sensor is built in right here, and the reason why this is so important is that it is extremely accurate. So instead of just using like the camera and algorithms to figure out where like people might be walking by, the X3 model has an actual radar sensor which is able to very accurately detect motion while also avoiding any false triggers, which is super annoying when it comes to doorbells doorbells because my parents have a different one and it literally rings all the time, even if there's like a fly or like an animal walking by it. So you're able to set the detection parameters and it will utilize the camera and the radar sensor to give you the most accurate notification possible and only ring if somebody is actually at your door. The 360x3 video doorbell also has a 5 megapixel high resolution camera to capture and preserve video in a stunning 2496 by 1920 resolution, which I think is like a pretty good resolution that not only ensures that the file sizes are not absolutely massive for the archive both on board and in the cloud, but it still gives you enough resolution to depict different details of the recorded image. The human detection auto siren is also a really nice feature, which has facial recognition and can distinguish between friends, family, and strangers to know who has been around your home, and that is also another great way to avoid any false triggers. What is also nice is some of the included features. So here is the Wi-Fi base station and the chime that you can plug in your home, so whenever somebody presses the button, it will ring and you'll be notified not only on your phone. So it both integrates like traditional doorbell features as well as utilizing your mobile device. And it also has 8 gigabytes of onboard storage that can store up to 120 days of recorded motion, which usually creates snapshots between 10 to 60 seconds. And the fact that it is onboard and also has the option to be on the cloud just makes it very handy. So if you want to be able to access it right away, you can offload the footage from here. Overall, with a really nice design, a good set of features, the radar, decent camera quality, and also the ability to have a nice night mode, the facial recognition software is a very important feature, and I feel like for the price, you do get all the accessories needed to have a complete doorbell and also security solution for like an office, townhouse, or also home, of course. So if you guys want to go ahead and check out the 360 Video Doorbell X3, I'm going to go ahead and drop a link down below. When it comes to the actual design process, though, I paid about $3,000 to have what was called a feasibility plan done. So that includes actual like renderings of the place where they might like put together the slat wall and give you like visuals of what you should expect in the space as well as the layout, and also a materials list and construction plan just for you to like generally follow, with the option to also use their construction company that they're partnered with. Because I was doing the YouTube series and I often change a lot of different things and wanted to like adapt the budget according to like the sponsors on the series, I didn't go with a construction company and ended up leading the project with myself and also a friend who is a project manager at a construction company. And so the general design I went with like, it was more of like a basic package to get a bit of guidance, and it was definitely very helpful. And the kind of color swatch that I ended up with was like a walnut with like matte black, concrete, and like a very industrial monochromatic loft finish with natural elements such as wood that will really bring some of the color out. After the design is done though, the part that really shocked me the most was the demolition costs. I thought this would be something that would cost like maybe $3,000 to $5,000, but to be honest, there was a lot. And after seeing the pile of stuff that they had to remove, including the subfloor, a concrete column, 2 fireplaces, and like literally every single thing in this place, including like steel bar railings and glass and all that kind of stuff, a lot of this was based on the charge of weight. So when you take it to like the disposal, they're gonna charge you based on the weight as well as the time and labor. So the overall demolition cost of this place was over $9,000, which just really surprised me because, as I said, I thought it was like a relatively simple process, but to be honest, there wasn't really anything that people wanted in this place, because in other projects, I may have like sold the kitchen or something on Facebook Marketplace, and you not only make a little bit of money off it, but someone would come and demolish it for free. But the one here was just so ugly, and there was a lot of like heavy metals and wood subfloors that had to be removed. So even though I'm sure we could have like shopped the price a little bit, the total cost that we were quoted was about $7,000. But after I had the bathroom removed as well and like the bathtub, it ended up coming out to about $9,000 after tax. After the demolition was all done though, it was time to go through the entire place with the electrician to just pick where everything is going to go. So starting out with like basic power outlets, I had a power outlet added essentially every 6 feet. So whether it was the TV wall, the wall over here, upstairs with all the desks, I needed a power outlet in pretty much every single spot possible. And beyond that, I also added stuff like a heating unit up there, which is just like very discreet. I didn't really want one on the floor like a traditional baseboard heater. And I also had a light added on the wall right here for filming, which uses like the quasar tubes from the camera company to just like give us like another light that we can use for videos. And also not to forget the kitchen and bathroom rewiring, the lights that are hanging on the wall and having additional ones added over there. So overall, when it came to like the electric work, there was something like 20 outlets that were added. There was also the lighting, of course, which ended up costing about $3,000 because there was like 20 lights added and each one is able to have a custom Kelvin setting. So when it came to like the actual like entire electric process, it came out to a price point of about $12,000 and that includes the fixtures. So the heater, for example, was $900 because it is one that hangs on the wall instead of being in the baseboard. And that is definitely an area where I could have saved a lot of money if I just went with something more typical. The lighting fixture is another $400. All the lights in the ceiling that weren't there before and the actual fixtures themselves were about $2,000 to $3,000. So overall, when it comes to like the actual labor of the electrical process, it probably came out to give or take like $6,000 to $7,000. And considering all the walls had to be completely ripped out, I feel like that was actually a pretty good spend. The only area that I might have had some doubts were in the actual breaker panel. So this place obviously is a residential loft. It's not really meant for like being used as like an office or like having all these lights and tech equipment. So the 100 amp breaker definitely had some worries, but it's overall been fine in the first year here. I've never had any situation where I've tripped the breaker, and with the washer and dryer completely removed, that definitely does factor into some degree. Going in line with the electrical work, the plumbing also had some work to do as well because the sink was being moved in the kitchen and the shower upstairs was being capped to make the actual office desk space a little bit larger, while also removing the bathtub and turning that entire area into a shower. So plumbing is always expensive. I've noticed that. We've already had a toilet issue here that completely wasn't our fault. Nobody clogged it, and that was like almost like $800, $900 to fix the toilet. So the overall plumbing expense after having all of the fixtures installed, the capping and like switching the placement of everything and moving the sink was $2,833. If there's any like internet plumbers out there, you let me know if this was a good deal, but it was definitely an area that I don't like spending that much money, but kind of had to. On the topic of plumbing though, the bathroom tiling came out to a price of about $2,400, and I was also able to find some tiles on Facebook Marketplace for the floor, which looked very good, but generally speaking, it was just white tile that went throughout the showers on both of them and also went up to along the wall of the upstairs bathroom as well. That may have been an area that I could have saved a little bit of money and just tiled the showers alone, and if I was to do it again, I would say for an office that wasn't exactly necessary. The tiling work itself though, for both showers and the entire bathroom upstairs came out to a cost of $6,973. Even though this is on the high end of what I expected, and probably the reason why I won't tile certain properties in the future, is because I actually turned the bathtub into a large shower. The bathtub before just didn't make much sense. It was like kind of weirdly arched in the corner, and I felt like because of the layout, it was like the perfect place to be able to put like a nice large shower that could help the resale in the future, just because the bathtub was honestly nothing special at all. So with that, they have to like do the whole like concrete, and they have to do like the Schluter layer and like prepare the entire shower setup and the drain and all that kind of stuff. And because it is like an actual tiled floor instead of just being a dish, that definitely did factor in this price because it took weeks and weeks to get that entire bathroom done. So the kitchen is probably the most exciting part of any renovation, and this one right here needed a huge transformation. You guys might have seen like the crazy like aluminum fronts of the kitchen before with like a pot rack on the top and a large cement pole, the sink placement and everything. So this was what I was most excited for because I want to look like very minimal and bold, and I think it looks incredible. There's also the nice like millwork range hood and everything, and the actual kitchen millwork for both the bathrooms and also the kitchen itself came out to a typical price of about $20,000. And with some of the companies, as I mentioned, we did do some video work for them in exchange, so both sides were able to kind of benefit from that, where we save costs and they get some video work and also some promotion on the YouTube series. Thomas & Birch in Victoria is a company that I use every single time, and the cabinets are from the company Cabico, which I've been a huge fan of. I used it in all of them so far, and I also have it in my house that you guys have seen in the previous series. Some of the other costs to factor in the kitchen is the appliances. So in this case, I spent about $4,689, and we definitely could have gotten cheaper fixtures, but I figured it made sense to spend on the stove because it looks really nice. It was on sale for about $2,100. I also got a dishwasher and ended up going with like the cheapest one that had the option to have a custom face. So that was about $800 from Bosch, and the fridge itself was about $900, which I feel like is like a pretty entry-level price point for something that's that still looks pretty solid. So overall, that's how I got to the price of $4,689 after tax for all the appliances. Even though we don't really cook in the office that much, I think for the aesthetic and like the long-term resale, it definitely makes some sense. And the old appliances were about 20 years old and they ended up being sold on Facebook Marketplace for a total of about $1,800. So we only actually had to add a couple thousand to get completely brand new appliances that were way better than what was in here before. When it comes to the stone and countertop, we partnered with Cosentino and their Style Stone collection to feature their product in this series and also provide them with some visuals. And the choice that I went with is charcoal soapstone for the countertop and also the waterfall, and the Calcutta gold for the backsplash and also in the bathroom counters. And typically this stone would cost about $100 a square foot, I believe. And based on the amount of stone that we ended up using, I believe it was a total of 3 slabs. So I would say at least $10,000 and up in total. And on top of that, you also have to factor in the fabrication, which can be between $5,000 to $10,000. So that is an area where we definitely saved a lot of money because of the promotional work, but it's one that is usually quite expensive, and I feel like really does elevate the space overall because it was like laminate countertops before. Some of the miscellaneous costs that you do have to factor in any renovation though is HVAC and also like the gas fixtures. So the gas was kind of in a weird space with the old stove, and also having to like cap off the gas of the old fireplaces ended up coming out to a cost of about $1,100. And the HVAC also had to move the location of where the actual hood fan was, and that comes out to a cost of about $390. One appliance that I did save a lot of money on though was the microwave. And this drawer microwave usually costs $1,700 in Canada. We ended up getting it for $600 on Facebook Marketplace, and that allows us to get rid of like the range hood microwave combination, which just always looks very cheap and builder grade, and I see it all the time in condos and absolutely hate it. So I ended up moving the microwave over to the drawer, which I think was a great choice. And up top, we have a custom millworked range hood, which only actually costed about $400 for the range hood element itself. And it's not only more powerful than the ones built into a microwave and with a gas stove, but it also looks so much better, and I think really does up the value and the quality of the entire renovation. I'm sure a lot of you guys are also wondering about the cost of the polished concrete. So with polished concrete, you can kind of do it in a few different ways. When you take up all of your old floors, if your building is made out of concrete and steel, chances are it's going to be concrete below it. But a lot of times the concrete is not really meant to be like an actual finish, and it can look really, really bad. In this property, I would say it looked okay, but we were lucky with the fact that it was concrete anyways, because I was obviously not sure when I originally purchased the place. So it was concrete underneath, which was a good sign, but there were some areas that definitely needed a lot of fixing and smoothing. And in the newest property that I purchased in the investment series, that place would not have been good for polished concrete because it just doesn't look good at all. If you have concrete below the hardwood floors that you can refinish, it's gonna cost you a lot less than having to pour an entire new layer. So in this case, that's what I did here. It came out to a price of about $5 to $6 a square foot, and the actual finishing was about $4,100. And what they do is that they patch all the holes in the space. They'll take a machine that weighs like 600 pounds and just run it through the entire space. And some of this cost was just to get that machine up the stairs because this building does not have an elevator. So that's like literally a half-day thing where like 5 people have to come in and get that thing up. So it would be a lot cheaper for like the typical like place with an elevator. I would say about $5 a square foot, but in this case, the cost came out to about $6 a square foot. And in terms of timeline, it took about 4 days. The next step in the process is for them to seal it. And overall, I would say it turned out pretty decent, but if I was to live in the space, I probably still would have opted for actual like hardwood or vinyl floors, because if you factor in the cost of doing about a 700 square foot base floor, it's pretty much the same price as polished concrete. And I feel like polished concrete is kind of a love it or hate it, but in our situation, because it is an office and we're like pretty rough with it, it just made sense. If I was to ever sell the space though, I probably would add some actual like herringbone floors just to give it a more complete look, because the industrial look is definitely a bit rough. Some of the other small things that I did though was window film and also the shades. So the window film came out to a price of about $770 per piece, which is quite a bit, but they had to like get up in the scaffolding and all that. And if I had to do this again, I wouldn't, because I thought the windows were not actually tinted and that it was the film, but after installing the new window film, even though it does look a little bit cleaner instead of being like all bubbly, it didn't really make a difference in terms of the actual color. And I would say that's the one thing that I still don't like about the space. It's the fact that the outside windows are colored. The window shades came out to a price of about $3,000, and these are relatively large, so I do understand that price point. And they're just like pieces that slide down for a total of 5 different pieces, and I just went with like a white finish with like a 5% dispersion. So whenever we film, we at least still have a little bit of light coming in, but it generally does a good job of blocking the light from the outside so we can control the lighting scenario. Some of the biggest areas where I think a lot of you guys are wondering where the cost is though, is in this actual wood wall behind me and the stairs and railing. And this was definitely a very large investment, and I feel like if you're like picking a different material or going with something different, it's an area where you can save a ton of money, but in my case, I wanted a very specific look, so I ended up spending it. So the actual like millworked wall behind me is all made out of real walnut. It was 100% handmade, and like all the pieces are nicely beveled, and the way that it was installed was with a French cleating method where there's like a 45-degree angle cut that was anchored into the wall before the piece was actually slid on and screwed in. Onto the stairs and railing though, this was definitely a splurge, but it was a good way to like completely open up the space. So when it came to the railings, there was the option to do glass and also steel bar. And I've seen steel bar before and I absolutely loved it. So these were all handmade as well. Solid steel, very well put together, and with like the angle and like all the engineering stuff that had to go into making a custom railing and all that, it came out to a total cost of about $13,000. So if you're looking to save money, I think glass would have been a little bit cheaper, but the reason why I really like the steel bar is that it really does open up the space with what used to be like a blue glass with rounded steel finish that looked like a public railing with a fireplace up top. The steps were also an area that had to be replaced because there was a ton of cracking overall, and that was like the only like issue mentioned on the inspection report because the place was generally in good condition. But by using solid wood and going with like a black finish and everything, that came out to a price of about an additional $3,000 because these were all kiln dried and the highest quality possible. As I mentioned previously, though, if I was to do it again, I would probably do like a walnut finish because the black just shows a lot of wear and it just shows dust very easily as well. And I think that is one of my biggest like decisions overall where I could have made a bit more of a rational one. In the upstairs office, I did opt for carpet tile, which was actually really affordable. It was like under $2 a square foot, and it was actually self-installed, so that altogether looked really nice. It is also a durable option to go, and with the filming area downstairs and all the equipment rolling around and like the hard polished concrete, I figured it was nice to have like a soft carpet upstairs. And there's no regrets in what we did in that upstairs loft because I think it turned out really nice with all the desks. So now on to some of the finishing costs with the drywall and the paint. The overall drywall cost was about $4,600 because literally every single part of it had to be ripped out and like replaced and patched and all that stuff. And I was actually surprised by just how expensive drywalling is compared to painting because the painting for the entire place with 2 coats only costed about $2,359 and then an additional $3,000 to do the ceiling because they have to do all the scaffolding, spray it, cover it and all that kind of stuff. And it would have been a lot cheaper if I made that decision a lot earlier, but instead it was kind of like a last minute thing after I saw the entire place come together. I think with any renovation though, you're gonna notice that in some areas, it's gonna come out a lot cheaper than you expected. The fireplace removal was one that I thought would cost like up to $5,000 because of like a specialist needing to come and take it out, but it ended up only costing like $1,000 compared to like the demolition where I thought it would be about $5,000 and it ends up costing $9,000. Drywalling was another example of an area that kind of surprised me, whereas the paint was a lot cheaper than I expected because from previous projects, I was probably prepared to pay like $5,000 to $6,000 for the paint and finishing with 2 coats of this entire place. So essentially this pretty much puts us at a grand total of over $100,000 Canadian, which would be about $80,000 in the US. And you also have to factor in the fact that it was COVID and there were also some like delays here and there and areas that we may have paid more money to get something done faster because the video sponsor was paying more than that and the kind of cost trade-off just made sense. If you told me at the start of the project that it was going to cost over $100,000, I think I would be a little bit surprised, but there were definitely people that warned me that based on the number of things that I wanted to get done, that it was going to cost that. The design firm quoted us at a cost of over $140,000 to get the entire project done in a much faster time frame, but I think overall, based on the number of things that we may have changed or added along the way, the budget that I landed on was actually pretty decent. There's always things to learn that we're gonna bring into the next project in terms of cost savings and like strategic stuff, but I think generally speaking, we did a pretty good job in the budgeting process, and being a YouTube channel that is kind of in a unique situation where we have new sponsors all the time for like the actual home makeover series itself, the budget was definitely adaptive, and something that I've never done before is take a construction loan. I don't like to like set a large budget in the beginning and rely on a loan because you already have the mortgage for the property, but instead go based on a budget that makes sense according to the content that you're making and how much revenue that the company is bringing in relative to the actual value of the property. I can say with pretty high confidence that if I was to sell this property right now, I would make all the money back that I spent on the renovation, if not more, because it is just such a big transformation that is so different from any other unit in this building. And being only a few units in this actual loft setup, you don't really find that often in the city, especially with new developments nowadays getting a lot smaller. This is a 1,000 square foot loft that has 2 full bathrooms. It has like a very large open area, including a den and a nice kitchen. So whenever I'm like trying to factor in how much I should spend on like a renovation, I always do think about how unique the space is and how much better we could make it. But at the same time, I did spend a premium because this is the office that I'm personally using. And if I was just to flip it, there's obviously a lot of areas that I would reduce the cost. So yeah, overall, this renovation was over $100,000. And if I was to do it like more conservatively, I think we can get it down to like a cost of about $70,000 to $80,000, but I am extremely picky. If you guys enjoy videos like this, where I show you like the whole like renovation process and how we integrate technology with interior design, and just to like hopefully give you guys like advice and also talk about like the mistakes we made and things that we could have done better in hopes of helping you guys who are hoping to do a renovation, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, and also leave a comment down below about your favorite part of this entire project. And as always, all the other episodes are going to be below as well of this entire series from start to finish.